Prince of Wales, Boris Johnson and Tom Hanks and his wife amongst the most high-profile to become ill with COVID-19. But this was not a signal that this coronavirus is in any way egalitarian. The poorer the borough, like here in Hackney in East London, the higher the death rate from this virus. The Office for National Statistics figures today show that the mortality rates in the most deprived areas of England and Wales are more than double those in the most affluent parts of society.
I said at the beginning, it was utterly predictable that it would follow the social gradient because everything else does. Why? Well, it may be something about being of lower social economic position that makes you more susceptible to whatever is going. And in addition, we know that comorbidity, having other medical conditions, hypertension, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, diabetes, puts you at higher risk of fatality. And those conditions show a very clear social gradient. The poorer you are, the greater their frequency.
The question is whether it will now lead to any immediate or even long-term policy decisions.
This is something that we are worried about and looking at, and we're looking at it in the context of all of the different ways in which this disease seems to have a different impact on different groups.
And did he reach his self-imposed target of 100,000 tests a day by the end of April? The answer is technically yes.
I knew that it was an audacious goal, but we needed an audacious goal because testing is so important for getting Britain back on her feet.
Except that figure includes 40,369 tests posted but not processed. Test, track and trace, the 3 T's forming part of the government's strategy. So the next step is general population testing and an app to track, then contact tracing, and who needs to self-isolate. And in this alphabet soup there is also the R, the transmission rate, calculated to be currently below 1. The government is expected next week to reveal the roadmap out of lockdown, but keeping the R below 1 remains critical in this calculation, as well as being able to detect hotspots of infection. There is still no clear decision on sending children back to school either because of the lack of evidence on how infectious they are. But experts are looking at whether older children are slightly more susceptible, which would mean that younger children could go back first, followed by the secondary schools.
And Victoria is with me now. Well, as well as the testing numbers, the Health Secretary had other good news.
Yes, I'm very pleased to be able to bring you some good news because I sit here quite often and give you some very gloomy news. This is that fertility clinics are going to be able to open up from May the 11th. Now, they were closed down on March the 23rd, and I know actually from my own personal experience that any delay in fertility treatment can be incredibly stressful and upsetting. So this will be very good news for a large number of people out there. There is a warning that these clinics must ensure that they can keep their staff and patients safe. And some of the NHS clinics may be slightly delayed in this because of staff who've been redeployed elsewhere.
OK, and you mentioned schools. Any more on the timing?
Well, there's a lot of, in all the unknowns in this virus, one of the great unknowns is how it is affecting children, how much they're transmitting. And in Switzerland recently, they said children can go back and start cuddling their grandparents again. Here, they are absolutely adamant that that can't happen. But one of the issues that they are looking at is whether younger children, so those under the age of about 11 or 13, are perhaps less risky than those who are older. And as I said, that could mean that you could, for instance, and the 4 nations will have to decide this for themselves, for England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales will have to make this decision. It's a policy decision, but they could look at opening primary schools earlier and then look at secondary schools. But I have to say the evidence is far from clear at the moment. And again, they won't want to lift anything up until they're absolutely certain that it's safe.